Support for Ripple Effects comes from the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, sponsor of the National Clearinghouse on Disability and Exchange, administered by Mobility International USA. To learn more, go to www.miusa.org. I'm Justin Harford, Project Coordinator with Mobility International USA, bringing you a second season of Ripple Effects, Travelers with Disabilities Abroad. This time, as part of our #AccessToUSA campaign, we bring you the stories of international students with disabilities studying in the United States. The goal is that more people will hear the stories and start to think about what is possible. Sergio Medina, who is hard of hearing, has finished his master's degree in international relations through Boston University with the support of the Fulbright Foreign Student Program sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. We talked with him about his experience learning English with his disability, participating in American-style class discussions, and representing his home country, Spain, as a Fulbright grantee. Hey Sergio, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right, and thanks for joining us. Sergio, why don't you tell us about yourself, where you're from, your program of study?
Well, yes, thank you. My name is Sergio. I'm from Spain. I studied a master program in international relations in Boston University from 2014 to 2016.
What inspired you to go on in that particular major?
Well, I started with political science, and I really like international relations. I really into international organizations and how the world works. I mean, how different nations can make a set of rules to work all together in some matters, such as, for example, human rights.
Why don't you tell us about your experience with disability, Sergio?
Yes, my disability consists on hearing impairment, and is corrected with hearing aids. But sometimes I had some problems hearing the higher frequencies, so with some voices I have problems understanding them. And this is especially challenging when you are speaking a second language, because it's not the same when you already know all the words or all the pronunciation in one language, and sometimes it's a bit troubling.
Sometimes it's tough to are you saying when you're learning a new language?
Exactly, yes.
So how did you find out about the Fulbright?
When I was studying political science in Spain, a friend of mine told me about this program. They have this scholarship so you can be study abroad in the United States, and the Department of State will pay for your expenses and for a part of the price of the program. So a friend of mine told me about that. I went to ask to the center of the Fulbright Foundation in Madrid, and they told me to apply, how it will be the process, and so on.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, it's a really prestigious opportunity, and what ultimately motivated you to apply after you found out about this opportunity?
Well, I am. I have a major in international relations, and I think the United States plays a very, very, very important role in the in the international relations system. So I wanted to live the experience and to get to know better the American culture, so I can better understand how the international dynamics work. But especially because the American system, the educational system in America, is one of the best in the world. So it will be a great opportunity.
Why don't you tell us about your Fulbright program?
Well, the Fulbright program is depending of the Department of State, and it's a program for foreign people to study in the United States and for people from the U.S. To study abroad. So the ideals of the motivation of this program is better understanding of the cultures, which is pretty much what I try to compile in the study of the international relations. So that's the goal of of the program, and they basically give you support and fund you to get an application, and then they pay you or a part or the total of your tuition, and give you a monthly stipend so you can live there without any cost.
So it sounds like they pretty much cover everything. Is there anything that you had to cover apart from that?
Well, in my case, it was not the total cost of the tuition, but it depends on the bilateral agreement that has with each country, the Department of State.
Okay. So how did you make up that last part?
Well, I had some savings, and I could apply indeed to a reduction in my tuition for in my university, but I didn't got it, so I had to pay for it. I have some savings from my previous working experience, and I had to spend that.
You had to spend that. Well spent, maybe.
It was a match because most of the cost of the tuition was paid by the Fulbright program.
And what steps did you have to take in order to apply and get into the Fulbright program?
And the first thing I had to do was prepare my TOEFL examination. The TOEFL is a test for English, a second language, and you have to have at least a good score, like 100 out of 120, for entering some of the best universities in the US. So the Fulbright program asks for that score, 100 out of 120, and was the first step that I had to take to get a scholarship. After that, you have to pass. You have to send your CV or your resume, and they have to accept you. Then you have an interview. This interview is made by former Fulbrighters that will see if you fit into the expectations of the program. And after that, you are into the program.
Are you an international student with a disability who has studied or who is studying in the United States? Hashtag Access to USA needs you. Learn more about how you can join the hashtag Access to USA campaign. Tell us your story and share your insights at MobilityINTL on Twitter, Mobility International USA on Facebook, and www.miusa.org for our website. After you went through all the steps and you finally got to the United States, what was it like adjusting?
It was a bit weird at the beginning. Sometimes you think you know a culture because of the movies, the books, the TV shows. But when you are actually there, you are immersed in this culture and you notice that it's not exactly like that, you know? For example, for foreign people getting some jokes that are referential jokes, I don't know. I remember talking with a Russian friend that you love to make jokes about the Kardashians. And we may not know who are the Kardashians. Well, I do know because I had no other option. But some foreign people don't know about these referential jokes that are so popular in the United States. But in general, I have to say that I'm really happy because I found that people in the US is usually very open and very, very comforting, very easygoing. So I didn't have any problem.
Why should students, especially students with disabilities, consider applying for the Fulbright?
Well, besides the obvious reason that is the American educational system is one of the best in the world, and you can get to study in universities like Harvard or Stanford, I think that this program can make a very easy transition between countries. You know, this is a foundation that helps people from other countries to integrate in the American system, and you will get a lot of contacts and a lot of people who is also in this program, and you will never feel alone and that's something very important especially when you have a disability and you want to talk about it or you need help. And the more people you know and the more people you can get help from is the better. And this is the transition between your country and a foreign country.
What would be your advice for people with disabilities from other countries who are thinking about studying in the United States?
Well, I would say don't be afraid because actually people with disabilities is very widely accepted in the United States. It's not like in other countries. For European people can be more common, but maybe for other people from other countries, uh, they may think that because of they had a disability, it may be more, I don't know,
Like there
harder
might be less support, maybe.
exactly or less supporting. But I will say that go for it and try it because usually when you ask for help, you will get help.
The key is asking, isn't it? Though.
Yes, always. Because, for example, if a professor don't know, he or she doesn't know that you have a problem, a speech impediment or a hearing trouble or whatever you have, she or he cannot help you. And I have to say that one thing that I found really challenging in my classes there was that most of the course load was discussion in class. And I'm not used to that. And a lot of cultures actually don't discuss pretty much in class. They are usually more a lecture from the professor, but not in the American educational system. They are more discussion oriented. So you have to be more open and more proactive there in class.
What was it? How did you kind of ultimately adjust to that new change?
Well, with time, with a lot of time. At first, I wasn't very speaking. I didn't want to speak very much in class because I was afraid that because of my accent, because of I couldn't understand some words or some expressions, or just I couldn't hear properly the professor or other students. But with time, I mean, we were always the same students. So other students, when they were addressing me, they would speak louder or they would repeat if I wouldn't understand. And it was easier to discuss some ideas and with them in class.
And I wanted to know, like, a lot of people with disabilities, worry about when they come to other countries. What kinds of supports, accommodations are there? And I wanted to know, what was your experience like getting accommodations for your disability?
Actually, it was pretty easy. I mean, when I arrived to Boston University, I asked for my counselor and I told him about my problem, my disability. I had hearing trouble, so I will have everything I need. I mean, if I asked for a seat that is closer to my professor so I can hear it better, I will get that. Or if I ask for a special for hours after class with my professor because I couldn't understand something he or she was explaining in class, I will get that. So they were pretty understanding with that.
And could you tell us about some highlights of your experience with the Fulbright program and studying in the United States?
Yes, of course. Well, for starters, as I said, I had a lot of people that I get to know because of this, because Fulbright focuses a lot on networking. So you will meet a lot of people. For example, in Massachusetts, we used to meet every last Friday of the month, and we will meet in a bar, to know each other. People who are American and have studied in other countries, or people from other countries who is currently studying in America. Also, for example, Fulbright focuses in several social groups. For example, in my case, it was people with disabilities. We had a convention when the ADA turned 25 years old last year in 2015. So we all went to San Francisco to meet Victor Pineda from War Enabled and Aben Girma, advocate for people with disabilities. We could meet these people, and I don't know. This is something that other scholarships or other programs don't focus on. social issues and get to meet other people with similar interests.
Awesome. And the last question that we're going to ask you is, could you share us your ripple effect? And your ripple effect, for the purposes of this podcast, could be an encouraging message, a key piece of advice, something that you want people to take away from this podcast.
Well, I will say that first of all, look into the funding. If you can get a scholarship, go for it. Don't think about that. Just go for it, because it may be the best experience in your life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sergio. We really appreciate it.
Well, I'm very glad to have this opportunity to get my message to other people.
I'm Justin Harford, and thank you for listening to Ripple Effects. Visit www.miusa.org to learn more about Mobility International USA and our mission to advance disability rights and leadership globally, and to share with us your ripple effect.